Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right. Good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Violette de Ayala, founder of FemCity. Violette is a Cuban-American serial and social entrepreneur, founder of FemCity, and the international best-selling author of The Self-Guided Guru, Life Lessons for Everyday Human. FemCity is a members-only networking organization with local and online gatherings for women launching and growing businesses or growing businesses within a corporate or institutional setting. FemCity has been seen in Glit, Vogue, Forbes, AP, Mashable, and Fast Company, and has over 100 locations in the U.S., Canada, and the islands. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Miss Violette de Ayala. Hey, Violet, how are you?
Hi. Good, Kimberly. I'm so excited to be here. Your voice is, I'm going to just say it. I know I told you in the green room a little bit ago, but it is amazing. Gosh, you have such a wonderful voice. I feel so happy.
Well, thank you.
Hearing your voice, hearing you speak.
I appreciate that. Like I was telling you earlier, most people know that I always, chit chat with my guests before we start, and we usually have the best conversations before we start. And I have to remind myself we can use this for the show, but you definitely brought it on, and I appreciate you telling me that I have a great voice. I don't think anybody's ever told me that before. So now I feel really good. I have something else I can show off on and say I have the best voice.
Exactly. You're like, you want me to do that commercial for radio? I'm your girl.
Exactly.
I can sell you insurance, furniture, whatever you want.
Oh, well, I have to remember that. So for those who are listening and you need somebody to do voice for you for whatever, exactly. Call me. Exactly. But anyway, so we're going to get off of, talking about me. I know I'm wonderful and everything, but we're going to move on here and talk about Violet, because I am excited to hear more about Violet's story, and so that she can share some great golden nuggets with you all this evening. So Violet, to get us started, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit more about who Violette de Ayala is, who she really is beyond the businesswoman?
I love that question. I started my first business when I was 21, 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And I never envisioned it would become a thing. I would be doing this full time, and then I would also be helping other women do the same. But I remember being in that moment in my life where I had just had our first child. I didn't want to work the hours that my parents did. And have, my child really just, being raised by other people, mostly strangers. And so I really had that conversation. I think so many women have when they're in that situation, whether it's a child or you have an aging parent or you're looking at making some really big life choices. And being a small business owner for me at that moment really meant that I could have that time to be with my son and be an active kind of hands-on mom, which I didn't have. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of craving that. And then also being able to kind of dictate how much money I wanted to make. And I don't know where that mindset came from of, realizing that small business would give that to me. Perhaps it was hearing stories of my family in Cuba and, and Cubans, I think the culture is very gritty, right? So you have people that create brands from the ground up. They have 2 pennies and they rub it together and they figure it out. So I think having that as my background reminded me that I had this choice, and that's the way I went. And I made every mistake in the book. I failed backwards. I wasted money on things that I didn't need to do. And then I continued to launch more and more businesses. And so it got to a point where, in 2009, I realized that I had so much that I could give. And I had made this promise that once I could serve and give back, I would. And really, that's what started this whole entire concept of FemCity is really just being so incredibly passionate about helping women. I love seeing their success. I love also being a part of their journey, teaching them classes and teaching them what I've gone through so that they can have a less rocky road as well when it comes to creating, whether it's a business or the life that they want, or, creating the success they envision for themselves. And that's really kind of like the backstory of who I am prior to FemCity, outside of FemCity. And it's been an absolute honor and really a blessing to be a part of the lives of so many women that I look to serve.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to hear your story and all in a nutshell, we're gonna dice that up and beat it up and open it up a little bit more because yeah, we're gonna saute it. We're gonna put it out here so that everybody understands really what it means to make the meal, so to speak. So, when I hear the story, and like you were saying kind of earlier, that for most women, we all go through that process when we're having our kids, is like, how can I spend more time? What can I do to make my life easier? Not everyone, obviously decides to go into business because they're just not sure, because all they can think about is, I have to have something that's steady. I need to make sure that the income's coming in. And of course, if they're a single mother, that's even more of a process of thought, that we have trying to take care of our kids. But it's that constant reminder as women that we don't always put ourselves first. So to hear your story and that thought process of, what, I'm not going to be like everybody else. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but for you to make that decision at such a young age, to determine, what, I'm going into business for myself. What else was those triggers that you seen around you and learned that was around you even before, you having your first child and having a family and realizing that, things can be done differently and can be done better? Was it a generational type thing for you, or was it some other things that you were thinking about?
Yeah, I think, and I go back to, my family arrived to the United States in 1961 from Cuba, and that situation, like so many other immigrants as well, you arrive to a new country, you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, you don't have any, like it was before LinkedIn, before Facebook. I mean, you got here and it was like, here's a quarter, see how far that can stretch. And I think that hearing about the family members that I had in my life that, gritted their way, got that job at the 7-Eleven, mopping the floors, started to kind of save some money, started to put, and really the rise of the everyday person, not the person that went to Ivy League, that had $1 million when they were born, and, the one that had the nanny. I mean, it was like real stories of humans that were at a point of like, not suffering, but really had to figure it out. And I think that those stories that I heard all the time of coming to a new country, not having a penny in your pocket, not knowing the language, and then seeing those people create something, whether it's owning the gas station on the corner or, becoming that seamstress or doing someone's nails, and then all of a sudden you're making more money because you're doing more, manicures. That was always a story that I heard over and over and over again. And also the combination that my parents, did put themselves through school after they worked full time, they put themselves through school. And so they had really great careers when I was growing up. And, I saw that I wasn't really a priority. They were, my mother specifically, working, a lot of hours, not coming home until late. I was coming home by myself, making my own little lunch, my little snacks, and kind of taking care of myself until about 7 o'clock. And so I, for sure, when I compare that to other friends that didn't have that set up, that had those moms that were there to make the little sandwiches or make the little dinners. And, for me, I always laugh, like Oprah was my mom, right? So I'd get home and Oprah was on TV. It was like Jefferson's was on back to back. Right. It was, from 4 to 4, or from 3 to 3:30 was Jefferson's, and then from 3 to 4 was another episode of Jefferson's, and then it was Oprah at 4 o'clock. And then that was like the way that they raised me, those stories raised me. And so I didn't want that. And so we create the life that we envision for ourselves based on our own narratives and our own experiences. And so like you mentioned a little bit ago, it's like, it's not that everyone has to go in that path, but we all create these decisions and we all have this vision that we have, and it's based generally on either the pain that we suffered through or the examples that we had or the narratives that were given to us that we created. And then we make that conscious decision to say, you know what, I'm not going to live like that.
Right.
Like this was not my destiny. There's something more to life than me working like my parents did until like 8 o'clock at night and coming home miserable and angry and fighting and screaming and all that kind of stuff. So that was really, I think, the reason why I made those decisions is because I didn't want to have that life.
Right. And then
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. It makes very good sense. But I'm also listening to the fact that you had some maturity that some, younger people wouldn't have to deal with. You literally had to be the little adult in your lilife, so you were the kid, right, the little adult. And then, by time you did actually become that adult and you had to start raising your own children and your life is changing in that perspective, you pretty much had something that was laid out that you weren't really prepared for, but it was already there because it was kind of thrown in your face that, because the family was working hard and they're doing the things they had to do to take care of the family, you had to be that little woman in the household. So being able to integrate that into who you are today, and, I think is amazing because, as you said, you start to think about what it is you're not going to do with your life, with your life in a negative way. You want to do something more positive. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. We all have our, determinations of what we see within ourselves. And even though I think a lot of times we don't always live out our passions, especially women, because we're always putting our families first and everything else, and everything else goes to the side. But with you, I just want to hear more about how you created FemCity and what is it more to it beyond just your networking. I know that you are this huge guru when it comes to business. So we're going to kind of get more into a little bit here in the show about all the different magazines you've been in and some of the other leadership roles you've played. But I really want to know, how did FemCity come alive?
Sure. And it's going to sound, you're going to think, I'm sure, it's super glamorous, and it's not. So it's a really, I think that, and many of the women that you and I know most likely stumbled upon what they're doing now because, it was like that decision that led to another one. And then all of a sudden you're like, boom, I'm in business, or boom, I have my own podcast, right? So it's kind of like that journey. And FemCity was just like that. So I had moved from Raleigh, North Carolina back home to Miami. And when I lived in North Carolina, I owned a Pilates studio, and I had a couple of satellite locations, and there was a really great networking group there that I absolutely loved, and I really attributed my success to this group. We would meet once a month. It was very casual potluck. It was always at someone's house, and they always referred business to my Pilates studio. And so when I moved back home to Miami, I started working at the Four Seasons here, doing the marketing PR for their club and spa. The company that I worked for wanted me to brand with other luxury brands. And so I would go to every single networking event. They paid for them. By the way, Miami always knows how to throw down a party. They're always great. Swag bags are on point. The entertainment was amazing. But I always left feeling really depleted. I always felt like this was not, it didn't feel right. I don't feel like I met anyone that was like me. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but I just knew they weren't like me. And after about a year or two, I finally had a complete aha moment where I went to a networking group that was for women here in Miami. It was $100 a plate, by the way.
Wow.
$100 a plate. Super expensive. It was, your typical 3 ounces of little meat and a little side salad and, nothing
dried chicken.
That wasn't like
it's the dried chicken.
Right. Exactly. It wasn't like on this yacht with J-Lo. I mean, it was like, just like really piecemeal little lunch. And the presentator was a male dentist. And wow. I thought to myself, here I am, I paid $100, and it's a women's networking group, and this guy is telling me about UTK. I have 2 friends of mine that are dentists, and they should have been here. And that was my first aha moment. I was like, you know what, I'm going to start something. I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to meet once a month. It'll just be 20 women. We will help each other out. We will be there as support. I was thinking about running for office for the city of Miami as well. So I was working at the mayor's office and kind of putting in my time politically. And that's how FemCity started. It was literally just like, hey, friends, I'm going to start something. Do you want to just come to lunch? And they were like, yeah, okay. And then that first lunch was kind of like a snoozer, like we had no format. We all just stared at each other. And then the second time I did it, it's like the 3 little bears, I was too little porridge, and then I went totally crazy and I had too much porridge. I had like speakers and I had like all sorts of activities, and then that was like too much. Right. And then the third time I did it just right. And I did that. It was in 2009. I did that until November, when I had a woman come up to me and say, and on the side note, I was on 6 different boards raising money for nonprofits, raising the free kids, like this crazy woman. And this woman comes up to me and says, you know what, Violette, I drive so far from Fort Lauderdale, and I panic because your events always sell out, and I think you're being very selfish for not launching FemCity in my community.
Oh.
And first of all, that hit me. I was like, selfish. Like, no one had ever called me that. I was like, what? I don't think I'm selfish. Do you see how much money I'm raising? I'm like, for people, like, I think I'm a really nice person. Mm-hmm. But the truth is that, when the universe, and I'm going to get a little spiritual here, but when the universe puts some sort of opportunity in front of you, mm-hmm. and you recognize it, you notice it, it never fails that right after you'll get a sequence of other messages from above as well. Mm-hmm. And the case was true for this scenario as well. So the next day I had a couple of other friends that reached out saying, hey, I see these pictures on Facebook. We have no website, by the way, no membership, no business model, nothing. And they said, I really like this group that you're hanging out with. Like, who do I talk to about starting this in my community? And so I was like, oh, that was me, but, why would you want this? I don't understand. You could clearly, everyone can just get together and have lunch. But it was after like the 10th time, and that's how the universe does it, right? It's not just mm-hmm. one bonk on the head. It's like 10 bonks on the head. And that's when I realized there's something more to this than what I currently see. I don't know what these women see that I don't.
Right.
But there's definitely something telling me to pursue this. And I made the jump. I just like, okay, let me figure out how would I launch this in, West Palm Beach? How would mm-hmm. I launch this in Boca? And that took some time to figure out how to scale it. I now realize what they saw. It was in the pictures. They saw women of every age bracket, mm-hmm. every height, every color of skin, every weight, every industry style. And they saw joy and happiness. Right. And that's the real, that's real community. It wasn't Photoshopped. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, like everyone a size 0 or minus 0, if that even exists. Everyone was like real, and they were having a good time together. And that's what these women saw. And that's what I have always, and I continue to look to launch around the world, is that mm-hmm. feeling where it feels like home. Doesn't matter what you look like or your background, your experience, is that this is a home for you if you believe that we're stronger together.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. The other thing I'm thinking is that the women all just look, like you said, comfortable, and everybody is in their own skin. They don't have to worry about somebody standing up at a podium and telling them what to do or how to say it. And, is this the right fit for you type attitude? So I think that is the thing that helps networking organizations like yours and many others that we don't get to see on a daily basis or weekly or monthly basis. So talk about a little bit more about what those gatherings entail that when you guys get together.
Yeah. So we've always incorporated gratitude. God bless you. We always incorporated gratitude since the beginning of time. I wanted it to always feel that we were paying it forward. One thing that I noticed is that, women in media and movies are portrayed always like, I'm going to steal your husband, you steal my man, or you steal my job, or, whatever it is. And so right. I wanted to make sure that I stopped watching TV because of that. I wanted to make sure that we changed that I guess that expectation. And I'm starting to hear, women are the worst. I have friends that are women because they're always the worst, and they backstab and they steal your man. So from the beginning, I know it's like, really? We're 2020 now. 2020 is a really crazy year, but you know what I mean? Like, we should be better. We should know better, that we work mm-hmm. better together. And so from the beginning of time, we always did a component that addressed sharing gratitude to another woman anywhere in the world. And I really believed that even though that person may not be in that room with you at that moment, but just verbalizing and honoring the spirit, the essence of another woman, because she helped you to get to where you are today, because she referred business your way, because she served as a mentor, because maybe she's your sister and she's always there for you to cry on her shoulder. Mm-hmm. Just verbalizing that, it started to make it habitual. It started to make it very comfortable. It made it so that it was really easy. It was expected. It also pressured people. Like, oh my gosh, mm-hmm. Kimberly went. She gave some gratitude shout out. It's my turn. Who am I going to think of? I got to say something kind. What am I going to say? So eventually it starts pouring out of them. And so we started, that's really one of the things that we've maintained for the last 10 years, is that gratitude component. Now we've embedded, of course, we do variations of business workshops and live classes and group coaching, but really our collectives, the smaller chapters, they always have a component of sharing a win, which again, most women do not ever do. They always share a win and they feel embarrassed. They feel like they're, narcissistic just because they said, oh my God, I got that account. Like, how amazing am I? I love the video, like you said, I know I'm fabulous. So let's talk about Violet. Like, I love that. And we should be doing more of that. So we incorporated that component where you're forced to share a win. You are forced to think kind things about yourself and say it out loud. You're forced to say something kind about another woman. Doesn't have to be a FemCity member. It could be somebody else. That's, it's irrelevant. It's that we're sending that energy out there. And then the last part is that we share and ask how we can help you. What do you need help with? And I love that part because, again, so many women feel like they are superheroes, which I think they are. Everything is on their shoulders. They can't ask for help. They have to do it alone. No one's going to help them. So they go out into the world with that expectation. So when we force them to do an ask, how can we help? And you know what? Today I started this podcast. I'd really like you guys to share it. That would really help me. Exactly. It's really important for them to verbalize it out loud because, again, it becomes not only habitual, but it becomes part of your everyday thought, and then it becomes comfortable, and you just start doing it all the time, and then it inspires other women to, wow, that's amazing that Violet just said, like, how great she is, or how she needs help sharing her podcast, or, what her win, like, my gosh, now she was an Entrepreneur magazine, whatever. That really has, I think, been what made us, stick to that feel-good vibe, is because we're always paying it forward, and we're always trying to get women to recognize how great they really are.
And that's what I just loved what you just said, that you teach women, or not even teach women, women are allowed to pay things forward, to recognize that they are good at what they're doing, and it's okay to say that they're good at what they're doing. And I think that's the most amazing type of networking organization to have, because like you were kind of talking earlier about, sitting in that room and you're paying $100, for a dry piece of chicken and whatever, and some vegetables, to hear somebody tell you, I mean, and it's what you were saying, I had to sit here and laugh and think about it, because I've been a few times in those rooms and I just I can't do it. I just can't do it. I never walked out feeling satisfied. You kind of get pumped up when you're in that moment. And then when you get done and you walk out the door and you go home, and after you've been pumped up, it's like, okay, well, what did I learn today? Who did I connect with? How did I feel? Or was, people sitting in the room worrying about what I was wearing, or how cute those shoes were, or was her hair looking good? Did I have a connection? And the answer was no, there were no connections. And so when you hear networking organizations like yours, I think it's so important that women, if you're listening, this is what a real network organization is supposed to be like. You're there to share your resources. You're there to learn from each other. You're there to pat each other on the back. And it's okay. If you have 1 million wins today, that's the good part. And so to hear what you have accomplished, and to notice that you have 100 locations in the U.S., between U.S., Canada, and the islands, I'm sitting up here like, no way. I mean, it just has really amazes me how something with such a simple concept can be so beautiful and wonderful and helpful to many women, not just one or two, but we're talking, I'm sure, hundreds and hundreds of women when you have that many locations. And then you also have been considered an expert. So want to talk about those experiences that you have had. You actually served as a part of the White House Women on Environmental Leaders Program. Talk about these great experiences and being keynote speakers of some of the other things that you've done, and what have you shared with other people outside of the organization?
Yeah, so that was a really amazing experience. I got called into that. I used to do a lot more environmental work when I was working for the city of Miami. I worked for 2 different mayors handling environmental initiatives and bicycle initiatives. And then I got invited to be a part of this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I get to meet the president. It was so many years ago. It was during President Obama. So I was like, that's maybe Michelle walked in.
Oh my gosh.
I honestly don't even remember what the meeting was about, because all I kept thinking about is like, who's going to walk in through that door? So, but I have been really, really fortunate in having come my way. I think that one thing that I love to share with women, specifically in our communities, is that how you can have heart and you can be of service and still provide for your family and still be very abundant, prosperity and abundant mindset oriented. And so there's so many there's so many things that I just that were cool in my life. I mean, I got a chance to work with, Pitbull on a campaign here. I got a chance to work with, Jimmy Buffett on a PSA for actually this Marine Stadium situation I was telling you in the green room about. And so I have always really, I don't know, I just find myself in these really amazing opportunities. And I think it's because I just do the work and I show up and I'm of service and I look to see how I can help others. And then it comes back. And that's what I teach our women all the time, is that always, when you go to these networking events, instead of being like, I'm going to tell everyone, like, this is my card and I'm running this sale and they should buy from me. And so that comes across as really icky.
Right. So,
instead of coming across and being like, you need to buy this lip gloss from me. It's like amazing. I just made it. It's fantastic. Instead, be of service. How can I help you? Kimberly, it's great to meet you. Like, tell me about yourself and really listen. Oh my gosh, you know what, Kimberly? I know someone who would be amazing for, to be a guest on your show or this contributor for this magazine. And when we had come across in life as service-oriented humans with a heart-centered mindset of being like, there's enough opportunity for everyone. There's success everywhere that we can all rise to the top. It changes the game, and that's when the opportunities start coming back because you've put so much in that the universe rewards you back. It's usually through somebody else. And you always expect, man, I do that for Kimberly and she didn't do anything for me. It doesn't come from Kimberly. It's going to come from Kimberly's sister because, that's just the way it comes back to you in different ways. And it usually will come back from Kimberly, but it might be a month from now or 2 months from now. So I think that's where a lot of people go, oh, this networking thing is horrible because I showed up and I gave all these people my cards and then no one bought from me.
Right. Nobody called me, right?
No one called me. They all called Kimberly, but they didn't call me.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Kimberly was nice.
Well, and that's the key. Like, we're talking about networking. I mean, it's funny, we're laughing about it, but at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It's not about just handing out a card and saying, well, this is my business. This is what you can do for, it's not what you can do for me. It's, well, here, this is all about me. And that's usually where the problem comes in. And that's where you don't get all those callbacks and wondering why people aren't doing business, because you've made it about yourself versus, what is it that the customer really needs? Or if you don't know this person, how can you just throw a card at me and say, call me? It's like,
right.
Oh, okay. So what am I calling you about? Because we didn't have any communication. So of course you're not going to be comfortable enough to want to consider doing business or even recommend that individual because you know nothing about them. And so the way that you put it in perspective is that you're really taking the time, like you said, just to listen and learn. And then even if you can't do anything for the individual, you can send them into a different direction so that who can help them in that moment of, that they need, because we can't do everything for everybody. So it's understanding how to balance that and realize that I got the right person for you and I'm going to get you there. And so, your concept is exactly on point and I love it. And I want to talk a little bit about your book. You're an author. I'm an author. I love my authors. I love it that 90% of the people who come on the show, they understand how important it is to have a business and take that same business and have that concept and put it in a book. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Self-Guided Guru, Life Lessons for an Everyday Human? What does that mean?
So it means that, first of all, the book concept came because so many people kept, oh my gosh, Violet, you should write a book. You should write a book about business. It should be about business. And so I wrote a book about business and then I finished it and I was like, gosh, that's horrible. I didn't even want to read that book. So I kind of put that aside. And then I was like, you know what? I think the universe has wanted me to do it as an exercise. I'm just going to leave it. And then people were like, Violet, oh my gosh, I'm very open about my challenges and the stories of my life when I speak in public. So people had heard glimpses of my own personal story. And so, oh my gosh, you should write a book about your personal story, about, growing up with a mother who had a drug addiction, who was mentally ill, divorcing your husband and then remarrying your husband. So it was like all these kind of stories. And so they were like, you need to write. So I wrote that book on the personal stuff. And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's horrible too. So I put that aside. And then people kept asking, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to write it for myself. And if one person buys it, so be it. And the truth is that I talk spiritually. I do talk about, there's a certain flair of the way that I put words together that's very Violet-ish. And so I wrote the book sharing 10 stories of when I up-leveled my life and my personal development. And I wrote it by the perspective of, don't listen to what I did and take it as your own. Use my story as an example of how you can make the shift and become a better human, and have your own intuition, your own connection to the divine to guide you. And so here are the questions I ask myself in order to get myself to a better place. And I'm giving you these questions so that you can ask yourself how to get to that better place. And so that's really the concept of the book. It's very short. I did it on purpose. You can put it in your pocketbook and carry it. I have readers that have reread it over and over again. They keep it handy. They go through some of the certain chapters as they are going through certain situations in their life. But it goes through like money. It goes through losing everything, what true faith really means, you know, what love, like how do you find healthy love? And that's really where the concept of the book came from. And then more than one person bought it, so it was really great.
Well, that's true.
I was like, wow, more than one.
Well, you definitely got more than one person when you're considered international best-selling authors. So yeah, you did pretty good with that. I have to give it to you.
Two people bought it. Two people.
Yeah,
one in the
just a
United
few.
States, one in Canada. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and it's been a journey. You know, I love strangers when they read it, and you know, and hearing the reviews that people and just seeing them recommend it. It's just been really, that was such a beautiful journey. And the reason why I share those different variations of the book is because there's so many people out there that think, I'm going to write a book too. I feel a calling to do that. And then they get upset and they write one and they're like, it flops. And the truth is, I wrote 3. I just didn't share the other 2 because I knew it was going to flop. I knew they weren't good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
No, I was going to say, being, an author, it's always a journey. I mean, I've written 3 books too, and I think about the first one that I wrote and I was like, ooh. I was like, yeah, I can see why I set that one on the shelf for a while, then you bring it back out, when you write other books. But the key is that, there's always somebody who can connect. And, when we always consider ourselves not being the best at doing what we're doing, it's just the opportunity to share the information resources. And the thing that I have learned, that self-assessment is probably the best. And like you're saying in the book that you wrote, that it's not about people following every step that you did. It's about reanalyzing who you are and how you can make your story your own. And I think that's the most important thing about being an author, is that people really truly need to understand it's not about what you read with us. It's about the fact that you can take it and you can rewrite your own story. What is your story? So I get what you did. And I think it's cool that you have so much to offer everybody. I mean, between the books, you have this amazing networking organization. You're a contributor on so many other different things, with entrepreneur.com. So you're writing things. You've been in several magazines. You have just been all over the map. And really, when I think about it, it's really been such a short period of time. When you started a business back in 2009, wasn't that long ago. And here it is, 2020. I mean, you've made some amazing, incredible steps in your life. So knowing the things that you know, and I'm sure these are some of the things you have shared before, when people ask you, what does it take to be in business? What advice do you give them?
I think the number one thing is, and I tell people this all the time, I can teach you how to make money. I can teach you how to grow to be as big as you want. You can take all the books and the podcasts and all that stuff. There's everything out there for you. The truth is that if you do not believe that you are worthy, if you do not believe that you deserve to live a life that you intentionally design, nothing I tell you or you share here will ever make a difference, because at the end of the day, you'll believe that you just are not worthy. And so really the biggest thing that you can do is just to believe in yourself and to recognize that you were not born to be mediocre. You were not born to live small, that each of us has a way to really impact the world in a very powerful way. Whether it's you are a teacher in a public school system with kids that, are just coming to this country, you have power there to help them, to make a difference in their life. Whether you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a cobbler down the street. I mean, all of us have the power to change the lives of those people around us, but we have to believe in ourselves first, in our greatness. And from that, then it shines through. And then it actually, it becomes very contagious for those around us to also do the same. So it really comes down to that. I mean, the times where I struggled the most in my life, it's because I believed I didn't deserve to live a life, a grand life. And grand life being in quotations, whatever that is for you. Grand life isn't like, oh, I have 10 Ferraris. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. It's just living the life that you feel is authentic to what you want. Whether it's living on a farm and growing your own berries or living, in New York City, it doesn't matter. It's that you believe that you are deserving of that you can have healthy love, that you can be, always in a state of joy, that you can have a life that's balanced. That is something that you have to believe. You have to be your biggest cheerleader, because the world may not be so kind. It generally isn't, unless you're kind to yourself. And then you have that respect, and then you start aligning yourself, and you start making those shifts in the direction that you were intended to go in.
Well, wow. I couldn't have said that better myself. That was amazing.
Exclamation point.
There you go. I mean, that was great. And I just love how you put everything in such a simple perspective. And that's the key. Like you said, it doesn't matter what we teach you. If you don't know who you are and you're not, you don't love yourself enough to believe that you deserve everything that you are designing and building for yourself, then it doesn't matter what we say. Nothing's ever going to work. Doesn't matter how many books that you read, and all of that. And I absolutely agree with you 100% on that, because it takes time to sometimes understand that, when you're trying to build and you're trying to learn from other people, and you're stacking yourself up to, oh, well, somebody told me to do this and somebody told me to do that. But then at the end of the day, if you take the time to go back and look at it, is it really what you wanted? And that's the key. And so, I just, really appreciate this great conversation we've had tonight, and the information that you talk about, and just people hearing your story and understanding. I always tell people on this show, it's about realizing that we are human beings. We are normal, everyday people, whether we're in business or not. And, understanding where we started is the most important part, because a lot of times when people see us, all they see is the shell, and they're like, oh, their life is perfect. No, it's not perfect. Never was. But at the same token, this is how you learn. And so, it has been a pleasure having you on tonight, Violette. But before you go, could you please tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, where we can get a copy of your book, and if we want to be a part of FemCity, what do we do?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This is wonderful. I love your energy. And I'm going to say it again. I love your voice. And you can find me on Instagram. It's all my name together at Violette, de Ayala. My book, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, pretty much everywhere you can find books these days. And for FemCity, you can always visit us at FemCity.com. We have a whole plethora of things for you to take advantage of to help you, whether it's a business or career or personal development. And we also offer a free 30-day trial, so you can just take it for a spin, see if it feels good for you. And if it does, we price everything super inexpensive at $12.50 a month, because we want all women to be able to be a part of it. I don't want it to ever be like, oh, it's one of, I can't afford that. So we have a very low membership rate on purpose. And if you can't afford that, please reach out. We have a scholarship program as well.
Wow. That's awesome. All right, everyone. Well, you heard it live. I had a most wonderful conversation with Violette de Ayala. It's been a wonderful evening. She is the owner, as we said a million times, of FemCity, or should I say the founder of FemCity. And remember, she has an amazing book. She's best-selling author of The Self-Guided Guru, Life Lessons for the Everyday Human. Please reach out to her if you are interested, or like to get on her website and you want to be a part of FemCity. There's no way that you can't be. So, get connected and learn and give and be a part of something that's positive, because that's exactly what FemCity is about. And for everyone else, again, we are here every Thursday evening. I'm going to tell you real quickly, we got some amazing things coming up. If you have not been paying attention to my social media platforms, I'm going to just remind you, we have the Purple and Pink coming up, the Dance for Purple and Pink, which is our 80s dance fitness throwback fundraiser this is our third year, and it is based on, the purple is based on domestic violence. And of course, the pink is based on breast cancer awareness. We are having our fitness dance, fundraiser on Saturday, September the 26th from 1 to 2:30. It is all going to be virtual. You can get online to my Facebook page, or you can go on my personal page or the business, whatever one you want to find it. And please support or get a ticket, get online and dance with us so we can support these two amazing organizations that we're going to be giving the money to, because we do 50% will go to purple and 50% will go to the pink. And for those who don't know, and I'm very, of course, partial to domestic violence because I am a survivor of domestic violence. And so it's important that I always connect with organizations throughout our community that are doing something of good to serve women, children, and men who have been abused. And so we have picked, some amazing organizations this year. We have a Pain to Purpose, Inc., which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that we'll be giving some of the donations to, the money. And then our pink is through the National Breast Cancer Coalition's NBCC. So they're another amazing organization here that's been around since 1991 that has served and has brought out the awareness of breast cancer and has definitely made Congress stick to their guns and doing the things that they want to have done within this community. So please look up the information that we have on Facebook. And if you go to our Facebook link, you can go to get the event. Let me just make this a little easier because you're trying to go to the Facebook link there. Sometimes it could be a little difficult when I'm talking about online. But if you go on Bit.ly, a Purple Pink Dance Fitness event, but like I said, if you just want to reach out to me directly, I can give you all the information, or just go through and look at my Facebook page. Also, I'm on Instagram, on Twitter, LinkedIn. All the information is out there about our Purple and Pink Dance Fitness throwback fundraiser that we have coming up in just a couple of weeks. Please support us. Every year we've gotten better with this, and it's just been amazing. The participants and instructors that we have, they're going to be dancing with us and getting our fitness on, but also having a great time and staying safe within our own environment. So please, if you don't want to dance, at least just put in a donation. $5 would be great. Every penny helps out because it helps out these amazing organizations that we deal with right here in our Washington, D.C. metro local area. And also keep your eyes open. I will be having a class coming up, a master class, because, self-publishing is my thing. And so keep your eyes open for that. But I also have an opportunity for you to sit down and have a Q&A question scenario with me in October. So keep your eye out for all that information coming to you soon. But until next time, like I said, I will see you here at Thursday evening at 7 p.m. You all have a good evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.